Hi, and welcome to the Tie-In Podcast with Zena Harris and Mark Rabin. Our mission is connecting the sustainability we want with the entertainment we love. We're amplifying the voices of the people doing amazing work behind the scenes.
We're two entrepreneurs who've been working in entertainment for years. Zena founded GreenSpark Group, a leading sustainability consultancy, and I founded Portable Electric, a clean mobile power company that changed Hollywood film production. And we've known each other for almost a decade and realized that there were so many amazing stories left on the cutting room floor and behind the green room.
We talk to folks in film and TV, events, music, publishing, fashion, sports, and more. And we're hearing firsthand how they approach their work and think about innovation, sustainability, and their teams. These are the folks shaping entertainment and laying the groundwork for the future.
So get caught up on all of our fun, interesting, and inspiring conversations. Please like, subscribe, and share to get these stories out there. And feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you.
Hi, this is Zena Harris.
And I'm Mark Rabin.
Welcome to the Tie-In. Hi, Mark. How's your
Hey,
week
Zena. It's going really well. Yeah, I've been on the road this week, working from the road, and it's been fun. I had to go find workspaces, places to have meetings along the road, and yeah, it's always fun, and you get to meet some really neat people.
You seem to be on the road a lot. I don't know.
Yeah,
Like,
it's one
and
of my happy places.
you're like you know, a mover and a shaker. You're just moving
Yeah, I
constantly.
mean, at first part of my career, I used to drive almost like 60,000 kilometers on the road a year.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. But I was a field geologist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I forgot about that part.
Uh-huh. Distant past.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good. Okay. So you're on the road. I had the thought the other
How about
day
you?
that I haven't traveled this month. So I've been pleasantly at home, which is nice because I feel like, you know, things are ramping up, work's ramping up. The year's kind of starting to roll,
Hmm.
and I've been happy to be home in one spot as, all of these other things are going on around me. So,
Totally. Something to be said about a good home cooked meal and, your own bed.
yeah,
That's for sure.
totally, totally. No, but so what are you, you're on the road. What are you thinking about this week? What's going on for you?
Oh man, I mean, I'm always thinking about right now, the biggest thing is thinking about just change and, the need to keep adapting and changing and
Hmm.
growing pains, right? As we see this this world, broader world around us, kind of like struggling to adapt to this changing reality.
Hmm.
Um, but change is good, right? Everything's changing all the time.
Totally. Like I hear you on that. I've been actually feeling the same way. In terms of change and growing pains and whatnot. Like, or we're talking about this stuff inside GreenSpark Group and our team, and how, there's some new and interesting opportunities out there, and we're trying to figure out, best path forward and how we grow and adapt. So that's been an interesting conversation.
Mhm.
And then, you know, you can't help but feel kind of the broader change in, and disruption politically. And
Hmm.
then we've got the fires in LA that,
Yeah.
are going to be an ongoing kind of conversation for a long time. And how do we reinvent and rebuild that area?
Yeah.
It
Including
affects our
including the
work.
entertainment. Yeah. And including the entertainment industry. I mean, that's just like it was already down, and then the fires really took the final wind out of that that conversation. So now it's like, okay, I think sometimes it takes, you know, hitting rock bottom to sort of say, okay, we got to really, really think about how do we do this and how do we reimagine the industry and the world around us.
Hmm. It kind of forces us, I think, to be creative and exercise that. that muscle of, reimagining what we want to do. I mean, I kind of felt that way in COVID. Okay, this is like, it was very difficult. What are we going to do? We were all stressed and, but it allowed us to kind of think out of the box and figure things out. And I feel a bit of that here as well, where we're trying to navigate this kind of interesting political landscape. And I keep bringing it back to that because, I mean, honestly, there's a lot of uncertainty out there. So we're going to have to navigate that and figure that out. And then, with in LA, just kind of navigating what to do next also opens up the opportunity for
Hmm.
creativity. And I feel like I think I've said it before, it's one of our superpowers as people. Like if we this is, if we can harness this, it's amazing. So how are we going to harness this and what are we going to do? That's kind of been on my mind this week as I'm, trying to take the next step, right?
Well, I mean, it's always like the big old legacy actors in these industries. Um, they're they're going to struggle for sure, and I mean, it's going to be the nimble, smaller, moving, innovative players that are able to come in and help reimagine that. It always has been. You
Hmm.
see it with big companies and big organizations too, right? I mean, that's why they buy and acquire startups or companies that are moving fast because they know how to do it.
Hmm.
Now they do kill some of those startups and they instead of inspiring them to continue to be creative, they sort of like put them into the fold of the big organization.
Beat the
However,
creativity out of
you
them.
know but I think that, I mean, this comes up a lot in our conversations. It's like, but all production folks are inherently creatives. I mean,
No.
that's how they started in the industry. So, I mean, to have there's so much talent out there
Hmm.
that's like chomping at the bit,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
you've got to believe that this is going to be that from this will sprout and flourish a whole new generation of
Hmm.
people making change happen and telling great stories and making amazing productions.
Yeah. Yeah. And what cool, interesting thing too that we've been thinking about a lot this week. I know we've had a meeting earlier this week, is prepping for South by Southwest
Yeah.
because yay, we get to do live interviews there in Canada House. Thank you,
Hmm.
Canada, Telephone Canada, for giving us space there because it's one of our favorite moments from last year doing a live interview at the Sustainable Production Forum. And so we get
Yeah.
to do it again on the road at a big festival. So I'm super excited
Yeah.
about that one.
Absolutely. And but the funny thing is like, we're both also learning, like drinking from a fire hose, literally,
Oh,
on how to do sound and production and how to get everything right. And yeah, it's hilarious how this thing starts to take a life of its own,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and just humbling as well.
Well, yeah. And I think, yes, from a learning perspective, like this is a lot to learn really quickly. And, we're going to have a few folks, our team helping us there. So that will be great and kind of a way to pull us all together, if you will. And that'll be a fun experience. But what I also think is, you know, we're putting ourselves in a position to talk to people in corners of the industry that we haven't talked to before,
Hmm.
that are out there doing interesting things and and we're kind of entering this new space. So I know, we're busy doing a lot of outreach on that and folks seem interested and excited about talking about their stuff. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of, talk about reinvention and kind of learning and growing. This is all part of it. Just with this one cool opportunity that we have.
Absolutely, and I've never been to South by Southwest,
Me either.
so this is our first time going. I meant to go many times, but it just
I
never
know.
happened. And the other thing too is, looking forward to catching people kind of
Mm-hmm.
in the field, so to speak, as we've been doing. So the Canada House interviews will be a bit more formal setting. However, hopefully we can just find some interesting folks and then just corner them and interview them and get a 5 minute snippet. So yeah, if any of you listeners have anybody that we should talk to, we would love to be connected to them, and hopefully we can get 5 minutes with them, or even a longer format interview if that's possible.
And if you out there, listeners, are going to South by Southwest, let us
Mm,
know. Come say hi. We are going to be at the Canada House. March 7th, 8th, and 9th. And then we're going to be going to lots of sessions in and around at South by Southwest. So drop us a line and let us know. Let's meet up. Let's, have a drink, whatever, and chat because this is the fun. This is fun.
mhm.
It's I don't know.
Invite
It's a
us to your
fest.
party. And if you're listening, invite us to your party.
Invite us to your party. We want to go. We want to
Yeah.
go. We want to see who's talking about stuff out there. So,
Yeah. I love it. But that's in
yeah.
the month. So that's going to be March 7th to the 15th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we'll be at Canada House on the 7th, 8th, and 9th, I believe, doing these live interviews. And they've
Yeah.
got all sorts of things going on in that space. So that'll be fun. Bands, all the stuff. So I'm curious
Yeah.
to see how it goes.
Well, there's a whole music festival
Oh,
going on
totally.
the back end of that. So we're attending the film,
Mm-hmm.
right? The film portion of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it'll be super, super wild. And I'm looking forward to being in Austin. The last time I was in Austin, it was past June and it was obnoxiously hot. And then yeah, you couldn't even, it was unbearable. Like it was literally a wall of sweat would just kind of hit you the second you stepped outside.
Yeah, it's
So
called
I hear
humidity,
that
Mark.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what
yeah,
it
it's been
is.
a while since I've lived in deep humidity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, I mean, maybe March will be, I think it'll be nice.
I think it'll be great.
Yeah.
I
So
think it's a perfect
whatever. I'm
time.
dealing with whatever we get. So I'm in for a fun fest. So anyway, that's what's coming up. So that's on our minds to kind of wrap out what we're thinking about this week. Like, definitely a lot of change. I think you summed it up. A
Change.
lot of growing pains, and reinvention. Maybe those are like the three key words that
Yeah,
that we
and
said.
it's
So
and also look, there's an impermanence, right,
yeah,
to our state of being here on this planet, and I think that hopefully this will help us design more resilient systems really in the end of the day. And in fact, and back to sort of film and entertainment, right? We're already seeing it before our eyes. I mean, the industry is rallying and really realizing, okay, like this is the future and we're not going anywhere, but we've got to reimagine everything.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So true. So true. All right. Well, thanks.
Today, we're having a conversation with Robert Diaz LeRoy, who we've spoken to before,
Hmm.
and he is probably one of the most exciting voices in Hollywood film production who's actually doing the thing. He's making it happen.
Totally. Yeah, I had coffee with him like a week ago and he's telling me all this stuff. He is a thinker, he is a doer, and he's telling me all this stuff and I'm like, "Wait a second. Like I want to record this. I want to
Yeah.
have you back on the show. Will you come back and talk to us?" And it like, we I'll just be honest, like as soon as we jumped on the Zoom, we all just started talking and a couple minutes in, we're like, wait a second, we haven't hit record. So when we push to the interview, just know, like, we just jump right in there. So
Yeah.
get ready.
Yeah. We hope you enjoy.
The point that I kind of try to make all the time is that things have value and life to them. I mean, it's like watching Social D or Bruce Springsteen or The Cure or Elvis Costello or even, you go back to, bands. I mean, you're talking about Iggy Pop, who's out of the 60s. You go, well, that is the question I mentioned the other day to Zena is like, what is sustainability?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
What
so
is it?
glad you brought that up because I was going to ask you about that.
It,
And
what does it
so
even mean?
what does it even mean? But what I was making this kind of my explanation for it is I think it's a misnomer. I think the idea of sustainability is kind of wrong because it it means that you're stagnant. Because truly something that's sustainable is like a perpetual motion machine. It just goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. where I've been making the case, what I call it is dynamic equilibrium.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at, there's a beam and you have a fulcrum and you're trying to find this balance, and everything comes at a cost. Like you said,
Yeah.
the Rolling Stones are playing for 3 hours, and that comes at a physical cost. I mean, they're not taking a break. They're just like boom. They're just a driving force. And you go, why do certain things have an inherent driving force? And they kind of sustain, but they grow and evolve. When you're going to a Cure concert and there's 12-year-olds and 80-year-olds all attending this concert, it's at a cost. It has a cost of time, but it also has been renewing itself by
Right.
inviting this whole new audience
It's a
into.
regeneration, right? And I think that this is where, when I think about sustainability, I think that, it regenerates. Kind of convective flow of resources, people, things, stuff that come back in and come out to that new generation, to your point. Um, and that's what to be sustainable means. And we've got to get really much more clear on that, because you're right. It kind of is a word that's thrown around willy-nilly. I mean, even we have it in our podcast, sustainable entertainment.
Well,
I mean, I'm
that's why,
rethinking a lot of stuff right now because
well,
this
that's
is
why I keep on saying, what are we trying to do? What are we trying to have? And to me, we're trying to create something that has equilibrium, but at a cost. And physics dictates, the law of dynamics, everything dictates that energy comes at a cost. It just does. Even I just when I responded to the person from the music end that you just connected me with, I
Mhm.
wrote a note saying what's interesting is that in truth, one of the few things that we watch in real time that's a meta experience is every time we watch music performed, because we're getting two simultaneous things happening. We're watching the performance as it happens. So you're seeing this guitarist or this drummer or whatever, or the performer, or you're watching Mick Jagger, and they are performing at the same time they're performing it. We're actually taking in that sound. We're taking it all in collectively. And so it becomes, that was the first aberration of meta musical performance, when some drum guys are playing, beating on some skin somewhere, and 16,000 years ago.
It's a
That was
collective resonance. It's a collective resonance, right? You're now
absolutely
got 10,000 people going, or you now have, whatever, a million people listening.
a million people. And so this is where the paradigm shift is so radical. And I think that's why addressing it in a unique way, it puts us, it's like this, and I'll mention politics because it's the reality of situation. Is like we have this aggressive, almost totalitarian edict that wants to kind of like this. There is no climate change. There is none of this stuff. Yet you go, well, it's irrefutable. I mean, it's like, okay, let's say there is no science. Well, then there is no light. If you can't accept the fact that there's speed of light, then there's stars that don't exist anymore. That exists. That's a reality. There are stars that we only see now that no longer exist. That's just a reality. So if you want to deny all science, there's no argument. It's like, okay, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But in what we're doing and what you guys are doing and what collectively people can do is, if they look at a problem, and I said, there's a great line, is either you're part of the problem, part of the solution, or just part of the landscape. Which one are you? Which one? So if you can't accept that there's a problem, you are the problem.
Yeah.
There's no way you're just like, I'm going to turn a blind eye to this. Well, for me, I find turning a blind eye is just, first of all, it's ignorant. But second of all, it's like we can change where we are. We can, what you guys have been doing. I know, like even the iteration of the volt stack coming into a space. That's a daring move. That's a truly daring move.
Yeah.
Everything that comes after it is an evolution. I mean, Darwinian, is real. It's like, you know, evolve or die, one or the other. And so when someone challenges a situation, say, well, I think we can run certain things off of battery power. Oh, we don't know if that can be done or not. Well, of course it can be done. But now with all the different platforms and everything evolving from lighting to all these technologies simultaneously evolving, they collectively start working together. They start dovetailing to each other. So something that was seemingly impossible like 10 years ago. Now it's like turn on the switch, it's all good.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw over at Nanlux, they introduced a 20K that uses it's like under 50 amps, which
Wow.
is,
A 20, so this is your 18K equivalent is what you're saying is.
it's the 18K equivalent
So it's
HEM.
finally happened, and it wasn't. What's the big company that made the famous 18Ks?
Ari?
Yeah, or an
Yeah,
Ari, or the other
yeah,
one.
all the HM, they, Ari, that's, so they're like, I had this conversation with Ari, one of their engineers, like a couple months ago. And I said, well, how come you haven't kind of evolved your lights? And it's like, well, they felt like everyone else is stealing from them. Everyone was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Everyone else has evolved past you. And you're sitting back and you came up with these sky panels that are now 15 years, whatever, however old they are. And the only thing you can do is put some lenses in front of them. Oh, we're developing new stuff. Well, again, evolve or die. I mean, you can't hold everyone else hostage or blame, well, this company's doing this and this company's doing that. It's like, I'm so tired of this perspective that it's a competition.
Yeah.
First of all, I think it's destructive. I think I've been to these different events and I like all these different batteries, but one battery, oh, well, that's no good. That's just like,
Yeah.
why is that all of them should be equally embraced? Everyone has a spot. Don't act like it's all power. It's all different kinds of application power. Why are we even making it as something that it isn't?
Well, I mean, there's brand allegiance first and foremost. There's reliability, right? There's all that stuff. But at the end of the day, you're right. It's still just electrons flowing through, and then the light. I mean, you can tune the light to however you want, right? I mean, it's at the end of the day. So what's the holdback? What have you seen since the last time that we chatted?
Yeah,
Um,
which was in June. So just for everybody to know, Robert's our first return guest because he is constantly evolving and doing cool stuff. So we're like, well, let's check in. What's going on? Like, so I'm
Well,
yeah, what have you been up to?
a lot of stuff is happening. I mean, which I'm going to invite you guys to. So we're going to be doing this commercial, but I've actually have rethought the idea and purpose of all commercials. I really have this whole different way of looking at it. So when I did a dance with light, which was it was a meta experience of telling a story within a story within a story. I go, well, why don't we apply that same thing to advertising?
Hmm.
Why can't we let it be self-reflective? And so we're going to be shooting a commercial which is promoting a container that's a self-contained farm, a fully sustainable farm in a 42-foot shipping container that puts out 100% organic food, has the high, I mean, what it does, it's in 42 feet, they are yielding the equivalent of a 5-acre farm. It's unbelievable.
yeah,
So
and can be done locally in wherever the region.
they could drop it. Let's say you have a hurricane, they can drop this thing right where the hurricane is and be bringing out organic vegetables and to the people that I mean, they can drop this thing anywhere.
Yeah.
And so they go, well, we really love a dance. Like, we'd like you to like shoot a commercial for this thing. I go, well, okay, but I want the commercial to also reflect how we're doing the commercial sustainably, simultaneously at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah.
I want it all to work together. So we're actually integrating like 5 different elements into it, and all of it's going to be seen as the thing. So the focus is on this farm tainer container thing is they're changing the name to Fresh Farm or something.
Yeah.
But so how we're shooting it is also reflective of every part of it. So we're actually in discussion with actually having uh, the Extreme E be these vehicles. Are you familiar with the Extreme E racing? So,
Like Formula E?
well, there's another thing called Extreme E.
Okay.
Extreme E, and hopefully we make this happen, but we're discussing with them and trying to put all this together. Extreme E actually is a racing series that goes all around the world to areas that have been hit by climate change.
Wow.
And they actually have a racing event in all these different areas all over the world. They're all sponsored by McLaren. Or say all these big teams are sponsoring this kind of racing. And so they were doing Extreme E, and now they've actually are changing the season to Extreme H. So they're now going to be hydrogen-based cars. So
Okay.
I was recommending, and let's see if this part happens. We're already shooting a commercial. We're actually looking at integrating this race car into the commercial. How we're shooting it is completely sustainable. All the batteries that we're using are sustainable. How we're actually going to regenerate the power on location, because we're actually going to shoot at the Bonneville Salt Flats. So we're going to have this whole thing set up at the Bonneville Salt Flats. And then the other part of the equation that I found interesting, the problem everyone's having with batteries, they go, well, how do you regen batteries if you're using on location and like bigger units, like anything like the Moxion or anything else? How do you recharge those if you're out on location? I actually were integrating a miniature turbine engine that runs off of landfill gas and hydrogen. So it's a miniature turbine that can recharge anything and at any level.
Well, turbines can be flex fuel, generally speaking. So yeah, you have that opportunity.
So can a flex fuel run this portable Jenny, this turbine on the location to show, look, there's so many ways to integrate technology. And so my whole thing is the commercials are actually going to be, again, being shot from all these perspectives. So everything is all encompassing. It's going to have this hydrogen. It's going to have this flex fuel. It's going to have this farm tainer. It's going to have these race cars.
I can get you a retractable solar, like a huge,
dragon wings.
I can get you so Ryan Wartina, one of our guests, it's 22, maybe 30 kilowatt retractable solar array that goes like out into a huge wing, and it fits into a 20-foot shipping container.
Oh,
That's
what I'd love it.
It's really cool visually to see.
Well, I mean, this is my new thing. Is like, why not make everything be this meta experience? So yes, it's about this portable farm, but everything wrapped around it is part of the process. Every component, and so even how we're shooting it. So another thing I had just mentioned is Zena. So I just got contracted to do a musical, a feature musical.
Yeah.
And I was just brought into it. Literally, we just signed paperwork yesterday. And so, but part of it, we're going to be shooting all sustainably. The whole feature is going to be shot sustainably.
Yes.
But we're also using extreme, innovative, immersive technology in it. So the whole piece will be an immersive event as well. So it's going to go beyond 3D. It's going to be like this whole other level of immersion filmmaking. And so for the commercial aspect of it, it makes the theater experience 100 times more integrated. At the same time, I'm telling the same story by integrating sustainable technology. Well, again, the story itself is actually, it was based upon, it was a Broadway musical that was done in the late 80s. And so we're revamping it, and it's based on Native American. It's this thing called One Sky. And so I'm half Native American, half Mexican. So we're having, again, this whole indigenous aspect being integrated into the storyline, because people, they're not really familiar with kind of most indigenous populations lived on a whole sustainable platform. How you approached everything, what you would pick, what you do. Most of the indigenous, particularly the ones that were nomadic, they found this balance. They found that dynamic equilibrium of how to move through areas and leave the least amount of impact. And so all these pieces are kind of being integrated into this feature that we're going to be doing. And so that's like part of what I'm doing. Then I mentioned to Zena that I've just finished, and I
Yeah.
sent you the stuff. I had just finished a series called Dark Gospels. And
Sorry, what was it called again?
Dark Gospels.
Dark Gospel. Got it.
So on my other flip side, I love horror from a different perspective. It's like I'm not into people being cut up and sliced to pieces. But what I do love about true horror, if you go back to like The Exorcist or The Omen, or other things that probe into the psyche of what humans are, horror is just an extension of all drama. It's heightened drama. So horror is actually miscast. It really should be terror. Because what horror does, it terrorizes you, and the byproduct is horrific. So that's what happens. That's what horror works on. Like any war movie, war is terror, but the byproduct is horrific. So that's where what I really like about pushing this dramatic edge. So I've just finished, we shot a 10-episode series. We have two big companies are actually, because I like making things independently without having to be obligated to. So we actually did the financing and we did a 10-episode series, and I shot the entire thing sustainably. So the whole series was shot sustainably. And we were shooting like the very last episode, we did 22 locations and all over Los Angeles, all over the LA area, all battery powered, all the batteries were all charged, recharged solar. I mean, everything that I did in it, yet I didn't show how that was done in the film, but because
Yeah. Which you will with your upcoming production. You'll have a whole entire production
about the production.
capturing it.
So, but here's a series that, unbeknownst to anybody watching it, so you're experiencing this. It's an exorcism series, but why I chose exorcism and this particular thing. Have you ever seen Lifeboat, the Alfred Hitchcock movie? It's
I don't think
written
so.
by John Steinbeck, and so it's a very interesting movie about the survival. It takes place during World War II. And it's about these people on this lifeboat. And kind of you strip away each character's background by the whole thing is just on this lifeboat. And they're just floating. Their ship gets sunk, and all these cast of characters, you kind of dissect them in the process. Well, this Dark Gospels kind of does the same thing. It's about a girl dies during the course of an exorcism, literally in the first 2 minutes of the show. And so the rest of the series is about dissecting each person through these detectives' interrogation of them about what are they about and why is it. It's not like you're not in that room by mistake. Everyone in that room is there because it's a consequence of their actions, which was my comment about where we are as a society today. Don't be surprised if the chickens come home to roost, if where you didn't vote or what you voted for, this is the end product. So you're equally responsible. So it really makes everyone in the show or in that story equally responsible for this girl's death. And you can't just walk away, well, it's like, I don't know. Well, actually, you're all part of the problem. And so it goes back to my, part of the problem, part of the solution, part of the landscape. You're one or the other. And so that's this horror series. So I mask within the series the idea of culpability and responsibility masked in this idea of what horror is. Because you look at any war and you look at why we go to war in almost any situation. I mean, America during World War II, we turned down these ships full of Jewish children, sent them back.
Canada did the same thing.
Yeah. And you go, how can you live with yourselves? I mean, that's why I really like the movie Oppenheimer, because all of a sudden Robert Oppenheimer understands the moral dilemma and why they can't build, quote unquote, we should be reluctant to build the super. Why do we want to have this thermonuclear device that can alter the course of what we are? And so I so those are like what I'm currently working on. So I just finished this series, and we're prepping for these commercials I'm doing, and then we're also in prep for this musical, which the music is the other end of the spectrum from horror to this musical. But the reason I love musical, I started both as a dancer singer. That was what my origins in theater were in that. So I came out of that end. I should have been in The Cure, but unfortunately they needed another lead singer. And where I really see the change taking place is integrating all this technology and not being ignorant to the fact that we have this collective growth that has to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
That is the key thing, is
Mm-hmm.
that if we do not look at it as like, what's the importance of this? Well, it's important that every company that's going out there trying, we have to embrace that company. We have to figure out how to nurture it. It's like you plant. This is one thing about this enclosed farm thing that they're doing, how it's all integrating. So there's also fish in this container that are actually adding this fertilizer. So this whole thing is self-contained. Well, the nutrients that come out of the water from those fish in this farm container is the highest level nutrients. It's like the superfood for fertilizer. So you go, well, how can something that's only 42 feet long have so much impact?
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting thought. And I think this can be applied to everything that we do.
Do you like? I think so too. I love talking to you about this stuff, and I find that, just in how you described the series that you just worked on, and that your last episode or whatever was all over LA, like just that statement alone, like halts, like that is like revolutionary right now in the industry, in that I cannot tell you how many times we come up against barriers with people who say, well, we're going to be on location. It's going to be in LA. We can't do this thing. There's like, finding reasons you cannot do a thing. And here you are, just like freely, if you will, like figuring it out and doing it. And it, it's all working and possible. So how is that happening?
It's the big lie about the premium.
Mm.
The green premium is a lie.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you very much.
It's a lie. It's like, oh, well, it comes at a premium. Well, let's stop there and discuss this idea of a premium. Where's the premium? Because if I can go anywhere downtown, so what I sent you, that sample thing of like, I think a couple minutes long, it has all these crazy locations where we lit everything. I'm up lighting within 3 to 5 minutes. I can drop a battery and set lights within 3 to 5 minutes at the same kind of caliber of light that would have required to shoot would have taken, if I had to drop a Jenny, run cable to this thing, it would have taken hours. I can be up in any location with incredibly quality lighting and getting exactly what I want within minutes. There's a really great shot in there. We had the scene where this cop is arresting a serial killer. And it was going to be raining that day. They go, oh my God, it's going to be pouring rain. I go, great. They go, what do you mean? We're going to shoot in the rain. we're shooting in the rain. You go, yeah, we're going to have you sit. We're going to be sitting, just pouring rain. So we shot this stunning scene. Well, first of all, the batteries and lights combined, all these new LED lights and nanolights, like you can pour water on it. It doesn't matter. They can get soaking wet.
Mhm.
I have a 10K light right behind this person as he's after he's murdered this girl, and this rain is just pouring on him. And you can see the steam coming off his shirt and everything. It's just such a stunningly powerful image, that shot alone. So I embraced the fact it was going to rain. I embraced the fact I can put all this light stuff outside. We set it up, got this incredibly stunning image. And because it was so, it was like, oh, it's going to rain. Let's get this. I want to shoot it then. Well, I couldn't I had a crew of 2 people to do the shot.
Yeah.
That's it. And so, and it's shot 6K. It looks beautiful. It has this, other people said, oh my God, where'd you set this up? I don't know. We just set it up outside here, and I put a light behind this guy, and we shot the scene. So what would have taken me, what it would have been almost impossible if you used an HMI, would have blown the HMI up. You can't get them soaking wet. You couldn't put the battery right next to the thing. You couldn't, all the parameters that would be obstructive now opened up the ability to get this beautiful shot at a unique location that would have been otherwise very costly.
So you've saved time, money, and done something creatively that otherwise wouldn't have been possible.
You have to look at it as a palette of colors. Really, that's what it is. It's like this artistic palette that we've been added to. It's expanding. What technology is doing is allowing us to expand the palette. All of a sudden, it's what I would argue the case right now, that where we are with the evolution of technology is exactly the same space they were at a little over, well, almost 100 years ago exactly, when they were worrying about color and sound. When they didn't have sound, you could move the camera anywhere you wanted because you didn't have to worry about sound. Now all of a sudden, oh my God, this camera has to be put in this giant container because it's so loud, and we have to have these microphones because they're huge, and we have to stand right in front of them and say our lines very loudly and clear because now it's where the technical evolution has given us so much more to work with. And so when we go back to Zena's question about the big lie, and it is a big lie, is that there's no premium. Actually,
Savings. There's actually a saving.
Gigantic.
And more freedom.
Yeah.
Such a freedom. Plus your footprint as a filmmaker. You know, I work on things where we'll have 40 people. Well, at the end of the day, it's just this intimate relationship that I have as a director with my actors. That's the most important element on set, is to get the lines of communication, to get the words that are written down on page to come across in a poetic way. Whether you have the set of Dune or Uncut Gems. I mean, those are 2 extremely different sensitivities of films. Yet I think actually the emotional performance of Adam Sandler in Uncut Gems is just off the charts. And it has that jewelry room where everything's just so tight, claustrophobic, and just like it's just so alive. And so what we're given now are the tools that allow the colors and textures and to be enhanced. We can just jump, like literally where we're going right now, there is no premium. It's at a discount, but it also offers so many other colors and textures. Like going back to that whole idea.
Totally.
We're at the same position that we were 100 years ago. I mean, just think about this. They used to have 1,200 women hand tinting every cell, every frame at one time to add color to a film strip, to give it color. To have 1,000 women sitting with these things, coloring each frame, matching so it had color film. So when they projected, every print had to be hand painted. Who would is so we don't have to do that anymore. So, they actually came up with Technicolor, and they came up with different actual color film stocks. Now we have high end video. The image capturing capabilities evolved. I still like using film at times. I still shoot. Some of my film has been shot in black and white film because it has a different sensitivity. But how you choose to use that within your palette is really up to the person. So going back to this idea that why do we have this excuse being made that this is the green premium? Well, I think because we're looking at technology, we're not letting people know what's going on in terms of technology. And also because of integration of technology, is that people are apprehensive. They think, well, is this going to work? Is this actually, well, first person uses a techno jib, the person uses a Steadicam, first person uses, wireless mics, the first person, I mean, on and on and on and on. I mean, the film industry has driven itself forward because we are adventurers in the art of filmmaking. I went to, when I decided to go to film school, it was like NYU, USC, UCLA, Cal Arts. So that was my choices, and actually Yale. I had these 5 choices to go to school, and I ended up choosing Cal Arts. Why? Because it was an arts, because it sees the process as an artistic form. And so as filmmakers, I just think that it becomes our responsibility to not only tell great stories, but also push the process. That's our job. We have to push the process. And we can't act like, oh, well, I don't know if this is going to work. Well, every time you cast an actor, it's like, I don't know, hopefully this actor is going to work. I mean, that's on screen, behind screen is like, what cameras are we going to use? And so for me, we're going to be shooting. We're also going to be doing, I forgot to mention this. So we're going to be probably doing a 3-day event, probably in February, that will be at 3 different studios that we're going to be doing kind of an aberration of a dance with light, but like to a live audience on location, that we're going to use all sustainable tech, not only high-end immersive filmmaking, but it's all sustainable. So we're going to put these big kind of presentations on the studio backlots.
Well, I want an invitation to that one.
And when will that be? Exactly, because there was also we're going to be participating in the Music Sustainability Alliance Summit on February 3rd. Yeah, so that could be interesting to dovetail that into that. But let's keep posted.
We have to. It's a responsibility that everybody has to do collectively. It's like being able to speak with you guys on this forum allows people to realize, well, wait a second, this guy has a different perspective. He's just doing it. What are these? What are the encumbrances? I don't know. You tell me. Where are the encumbrances? I don't see it.
We create them. Like there, you don't, like you said, there's choice involved. There's when you choose to go, one way as opposed to another, like the 3 kind of, are you part of the solution? Are you part of the problem? Are you part of the landscape? When you choose, or by not speaking out in one way or advocating in one way or opening up space in one of those areas, you've essentially chosen another route. And to me, that's like an abdication of responsibility. And you've actively chosen to not be responsible about a thing and put yourself in the sort of landscape category or problem category or whatever without even kind of realizing you're doing it. That's one thing. And as soon as you start saying like, well, there's a green premium, you've essentially boxed yourself in. You've created a cap, you've created some kind of barrier, you've created something that is now you have to mentally get around. Whereas if you don't use that as an excuse, you are more free to consider, many opportunities, many options.
Mark, when you came up with the volt stack,
Yeah.
what initiated that thought? Where was that spark?
So I came out of the music side of the business and festivals and organizing events. And everywhere I would look, my friends who were DJs were actually gas jockeys as well. So wherever you found sound and lights, you found a generator, right? Just follow the cable. And so I really just found that to be extremely primitive in many ways because I'm like, wow, we can power. LEDs are 10 times more efficient, right? All of our speakers and sound systems now are 10 times more efficient. A speaker that says it has a sort of like a rating of 2,500 watts, that's people would come to me and be like, "Oh, I got 10,000 watts of sound. I needed 10,000 watts." And I'm like, "No, no. I actually went to this, recorded or sort of measured the actual power draw on a speaker that's 2,500 watts, and it was 10 times less, right? And it was like maybe 200 watts, maybe 100 watts to draw on that 2,500 watt speaker. 2,500 watts is what would be red line maximum squealing. So when I was like, I can do this. Like we can do this with batteries. Batteries are good. The inverters, the power technology is good. So we started powering events and festivals. And I had this one moment that really brought it home for me. There was this cellist playing this, you could see that she had devoted her life to playing this cello, right? And she was playing in a park in a beautiful setting. There was literally a Honda 3000 next to her going brrrr. And I was like going like, who's the fucking sound guy, number one? And how is she putting up with that? I would have been like, move that shit back there, like do something. So that was sort of what started down that path of just being like going, here we're creating art. And yet we have this essentially 100-year-old, terribly inefficient technology that if you were an engineer designing that today, you would fail engineering, right? It's 20% efficient. It can kill you. It uses, an input material that needs to be sourced from far away and underground, wherever. It's just not the tool for the job today. So that's what started. And then what happened is we started to our equipment. So this is to your point about innovators in film. Our equipment started to show up in all types of different settings and events, and they're all creative avenues. And all the film nerds were like, "Hey, this looks interesting. Can we use it in our production?" And so it started down that. And we sponsored the Crazy Eight Film Festival, which is a legendary film festival here that has all the top folks in Vancouver getting in and like volunteering essentially to make these cool productions within a 24-hour period. And we sponsored that. And all these folks started being like, I get it. I get it. I get it. Right. It was like this chain of events. So there's not one particular thing, but it was like this movement. And then I met Zena, and then Zena, she was like, "What's this all about?" Right? She was like, "Oh, blah, blah, I heard about you." And I was like, "Okay." So she came by the shop, we chatted, showed her the gear, and she's like, "Okay, let's see how it works." Right? And then we sort of then, but it was all like we had to nudge social and sustainable behaviors. Like the whole time it wasn't the technology, right? It was sort of educating, it was bringing people along. It was, we had a very primitive marine monitor on the early units, but it showed people their wattage and draw because before that they didn't actually know how much they were pulling or how much they needed or what the actual, like what they needed in terms of like we always used to say, what do you want to power and for how long?
Yeah.
We're like, well, I don't know. Right. That's the first thing. And I'd be like, well, look at the back of the device. Like, what's the wattage, the volts times amps? Like, let's talk about, what your actual power plan is. Right. And people are just like, oh, I got 8 times 15 amp circuits. So I need a generator this big. And I'm like, but you don't. You don't. So there was a lot of education, there's a lot of push pull. But what was interesting is that natural leaders and people started to filter through and come up. Right. So all of a sudden, folks that you would not even imagine. You'd be like, that's a sort of like old guard, kind of crusty, this, that, and the other. And then, but really, they were the ones who went, holy shit, we got to get on this.
They could see it.
So, anyways,
They could
long-winded,
see it.
but it wasn't one thing, right? It was a perfect time, and it just sort of happened naturally and evolved. And then now today, there's a whole industry around it. I mean, there's a whole market and industry that's doing it. And then there's folks like yourself. I always used to say that the true innovators aren't necessarily the people making the products. They're the people using the products, implementing them. It's like the green voltage guys out of the UK, right? They should win an Oscar for crying out loud because they were some of the very, very first pioneers to take this stuff and bring it to major blockbuster productions. Like, like to me, they're the unsung heroes here. You're the unsung hero. Like this is the art. It's taking this box with batteries and and power electronics and so on.
And
And
doing
what does it
something
mean?
with it.
Well,
Sorry, I get excited about it. That's kind of like a lot of the thinking that came on in the early days.
but there's where I stand on the backs of giants, therefore I see further. I mean, that's really where it comes from. I mean, you have to realize that you can only go as far as who's been there before. And so when someone like yourself has taken the leap, saying, I see this problem, here's a solution, let's do some math. Huh. Well, here's a solution that's pragmatic. Here's something that works. So now for me, I stand on your shoulders every time. And you go, okay, I can do this, 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 this. I'm going to try this innovative technology. I'm going to try this turbine because it's an interesting solution. It might not be the final solution, but it's an interesting solution that nobody's even thought of. I mean, when I talk to people at the studio, they go, "What? You're going to use a jet turbine?" Yeah. What about it? I never thought about that. I go, well, and then my question is, though, when's the last time you used a propeller plane to go across the country? So every time you get and turn on a Jenny, that's a prop plane.
Yeah.
Prop. So you're using technology that's no longer, you wouldn't trust your life in that.
Yeah.
So why don't we try to use some more innovative technology that's still been around for like 50 years, but we can combine technologies? Why don't we just aggressively try it? Why not just push it and push it and push it? And for me, as the art form, going back to the idea that I can go to 22 locations and shoot, so I'm like downtown Chinatown, setting up lights, and I just set stuff up. Nobody ever asks me.
Yeah.
Nobody has ever asked me for a permit.
You could just pull the van right up, have the unit
Right.
still in the van, plug it in. You don't even need to remove it because you've never,
I
right?
took a battery on a train with a light. Nobody has ever stopped me. It's like,
Exactly, right?
I'm okay, I'm
Because
good.
it's not offensive. It's not making noise. It's not polluting. It's not, particulate matter's not going into the
The
vent
car. Yeah.
or in the building.
Well,
It's free.
it's
Freedom.
it's the Harry Potter invisibility cloak. It really is. Because in truth, your footprint becomes so invisible that I can drop equipment without. So there's one shot that I have in there. So the way it was done is that I had to set up lights for about a quarter mile. This guy on his Harley's coming down the street. He ends up having a dialogue scene, comes, wraps around, and goes on. So the whole thing is about more than a quarter mile long, the shot. So I put lights, we just dropped lights everywhere. And then I had two cross lights that had the light where they have a dialogue scene. So we put one of the lights is in the back of this pickup. The camera operator is in the back of the pickup. They're leading this Harley down the street. They shut the engine off. They have a dialogue scene all in a take. Starts the engine up and takes off again. So I have lights everywhere. And these are all like 5 and 10Ks just set up like you never see them. It allows me this incredible lighting. How long would it have taken me to rig that if I was using it? First of all, they would have probably had it with a 1200 Jenny out there running cable for a quarter mile.
Yeah. Yeah.
Running
You can't put it far enough away in some of
Yeah,
these.
and that generator has to go around the block and all the
Where am I
stuff.
going to put this Jenny? Where am I going to? So instead, I can actually put so we're running one of the big lights in the back of this pickup truck, and we get this unbelievable shot. So I was at a college talking. I go, explain to me how I got this shot.
Mm.
Students were like, wait a second, you have lights. I don't know. How did you get this shot? Because one guy goes, was it on a techno jib? I go, no, we go a quarter of a mile. And we, so how, so basically with a pickup truck, I was able to we set this up in 45 minutes. We
Hmm.
shot the scene. We were done in less than an hour. Less than an hour. We set it, set all the lights, did the shot, and we're gone in less than an hour in some back alley in LA.
Yeah.
I go, we were doing this one fight sequence. It took me 3 days of rehearsal for the choreography. We were set up in 5 minutes, and we had to light the side of this bridge and this is a beautiful shot. So the very end sequence, we light the side of this huge bridge. And I leave the shot, kind of the light in the shot, because I masked it with all these other light sources. So I just put this light up on a crankovator. We light this whole thing. And during this fight sequence, it's a pretty brutal fight sequence. These cops drive by and they look, but we have a person with a Ronin who's filming it. First, I guess someone called and said there's these two guys fighting each other in the middle of the street. Cops go, they drive up, they look around. The guy goes, "Be safe," and drives away.
Because he's like lights and stuff.
You're like nothing. It's like you just nothing. Another case, I think there's a part where a person's burying them. They're digging this grave out in the middle of nowhere. It's a national park, and it's at 12:30 at night. We had to walk in a half mile. We're lighting the side of this mountain, and this bookie's gonna kill this guy and everything. And it's 12:30 at night. The ranger shows up on this four-wheel drive because we carried the equipment in. So we have four lights, one battery, and Ranger jumps out of his vehicle. Just, you can't be fucking running a Jenny out here. It's like the breast is like,
Yeah.
it's that battery right there. Well, how about these lights? We'll touch them. They're cold. And so he walks around. He goes, well, technically you're supposed to pull a permit, you know. I go, I'm sorry. Yes. Can I hang out for a half hour and watch the scene? Sure, hang out. And so he was there a half hour and drove away. We were done. It was a big dialogue scene, and we were done out of there about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. But so it's just everywhere we went, we were getting incredible images. For me, it's like, where can I go to get the real image I want?
Yeah.
And it's also by being able to go to a location that would otherwise, you couldn't have run a Jenny there. Would have set fire to.
You're untethered, right? It's almost this is one of the words and feelings that I kept thinking in the early days was just like, what happens if you untether yourself from that huge whatever machine, right? The fossil fuel machine, whatever that's going on. But it's like it just it frees you, right? It gives you wings to go and do these things at the very edge of the frontier of what's possible.
Well, the word untethered is the real word. It's
Yeah.
truly untethered. And I used that word with Susan when she was over at Amazon. She goes, that's you're right. You've untethered everybody.
Yep.
I go, we were shooting, I was doing this other shot for another thing that I had to light 4 stories inside a parking structure. And I was going to have to, if we were doing it traditionally, I would have had to run a Jenny and cable up, band it 4 stories, each dropping legs in each of the in parts of this parking structure. It took us like 15 minutes to drop batteries and lights. Boom, 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 boom. And every story, they were up in 15 minutes. It would have taken hours to literally run bandit, hide this thing. It would just been a mess. So I can do that. I can set all that up in 15 minutes. So it goes back to the issue of, oh, the premium. Well, the premium is when I pull the Jenny out. That's the premium. That's expensive. I mean, people go, well, how about people's jobs? Well, I'll just reassign. Okay, your job is to move those batteries around. I'm not taking any jobs away.
It's a reorganization, a reallocation. It's also, almost coming from an abundance mindset in a way too, right? Versus the scarcity mindset. And I think that that's part of it. And that to me is part of the leadership, right? I mean, this is a new form of leadership on a film level, and we're seeing these trends in our discussions here over the last, I mean, whatever, 6 months, right? That we've been doing this, and it's been really, really fascinating. We've also seen, this is interesting, folks taking stuff from the oil and gas industry, right? Large hybrid containerized battery systems, bring them on the film set,
Mhm.
saving tons of fuel. So it's those, it also, there's other industry technologies that can be brought in together, like your turbine and so on. So I think there's just so much going on here. But it can be very overwhelming for people who aren't attuned to these new technologies or new mindsets, new ways of doing things. And I think that that's been part of the challenge that we've seen. And also, there's the golden goose, right? That idea that like, well, we've been doing it this way, we don't want to rock the boat. Um, and so, yeah, we really are at this true sort of inflection point, and maybe it's that 100-year inflection point that you just mentioned as well earlier, like in the film industry. We hear a lot, oh, the film industry's down, right? Things are struggling. LA, there's tax credits. Zena and I talked about this. It's one of our sort of visions for LA. It's like, why would LA just say, we're the greenest film hub in the world? Yeah, you get tax incentives and you save this and you do that, right? There's no reason why LA couldn't reinvent itself as this global leader film hub.
It's exactly, I was making that exact argument. I've been saying this thing over and over again, exactly what you're saying. And I
Yeah, we
truly,
can do it.
we're not only the film hub, but there's a difference between stages and studios, because the studio is actually the physical infrastructure. The stages are satellites to me. So you have stages here, stages there, the the home of where all the decisions are being made is kind of in Los Angeles. It is the hub. And so everything else satellites out. Now, if they really thought about what could be done, you say, okay, well, here's this one filmmaker who's, yeah, but I can apply the same technology to something big or small. It doesn't matter. So doing the the musical, it will be a much more expanded version of everything because it's a full form, full blown musical. But I'm still going to use all the technology that I'm using. That's part of the deal that I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do immersive filmmaking. We're going to do it all sustainably. And the whole backstory is going to be shown. And I want it to be an experience for everyone. Plus, if you bring people in that are willing to learn, you can reinvent what their own knowledge base is. So you crew it up with people who say, I want to learn this. I want to learn. It's going to be, for me, it's a process of people are afraid because there's always a sense of insecurity. Well,
Fear of failure,
yeah,
whatever.
I can never look at things that way. I
Yeah.
just I'm wired maybe completely different because maybe I came, I was like I was a kid during this punk era thing and I kind of have this punk attitude about it. And it's like, fuck it, what's the worst thing you can't you're gonna kill me if that's the worst thing that could happen.
No, you drop a stick. You drop a stick middle of song.
I know.
Continue playing. See, there's nothing that really can happen. So if you run frightened all the time, I mean, that's why Fox News is like they prey upon fear. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of going in front of 1,000 people or 10,000 people and talking. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. The last thing I want to do is not talk. The last thing I
Mhm.
want to do is not make my voice heard because it's not like I have some incredible wisdom, but at least I'm always willing to try. At least I'm always willing to, like if it doesn't work, we try the next thing.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
all I I've done lots of sports. I used to box for a while, and boxing taught me a couple of very valuable lessons. And the most important was you're going to get hit really hard and you can get knocked down. It's just the reality of it. You're going to get hit really hard and get knocked down. The question is, do you get back up? And you said, well, why did I get into the ring if I'm not willing to get back up? why get into the ring in the first place? You're going to get knocked down. You'll be laying there. Okay, end of career, end of fight. It's all over. There's no reason to go there in the first place. Same thing to me applies for any music band, any band. I mean, how many thousands of hours that you put into something to get where you're going to be because you get knocked down over and over and over and over again. Every actor I watch, I mean, actors is brutal. How many auditions do you get? No, 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 no. That one person that says, you offered me something unique. Oh, I'm giving you a yes. So you don't look at the no's. You look at the objective is the yes. So for anyone to say, oh, well, this isn't going to happen. Well, I don't know if you're the right person for the team. I want the person that's not afraid of saying, it's tough. Yeah, I agree. I want the person who's willing to take the risk. I want the person who doesn't see it. It's, I've run tons of marathons. I used to do tons of triathlons. Marathon, at the end of it, it's all about the last 200 yards. That's all it's about. Can I have a kick the last 200 yards? The
Hmm.
rest of it, you're making your time. I want to have a kick the last 200 yards. Can I pass 30 people the last 200 yards? That's my objective. And so you have to make yourself feel good about yourself. You have to make people feel good about the process. I think that one of the great things, and this starts literally with the Volt stack, with someone willing to do, see something innovative and make a change. And I see every other company are standing on those the backs of the Volt stack, saying, okay, we'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do this. Collectively, we get taller and taller and taller. All those people need to be in the same room and work collectively. And the same thing for filmmakers. We have a lot of filmmakers who are, it's all about just making their film. Well, I can make films. I mean, that's not a big issue to me. But can I make something that has importance? Does it mean
Yeah.
the very first feature I did, David Mullen and I went to CalArts at the same time, and he's shot Miss Maisel and does, so he's this incredibly successful DP. And so we're both built still at CalArts when I win this competition at Universal Studios. And so we're still in college, and I'm supposed to go do this short film at Universal Studios. So they go, well, who's going to be your DP for this film? I go, David Mullen. And I go, well, aren't you? He's in college. I go, well, so am I. So you accepted my script. I'm taking him as my DP. And so it, it's just, you have to back up the people you trust, but also you nurture, you give fertile ground to evolve. And that's where all these things that are being done, there is no limitation. I think within 5 years, there's going to be such a radical shift that nobody's going to look back.
Yep.
Well, at one time, think about this. At one time in history, they built houses with both electrical wiring and gas piping for gas lights. How many houses are built today with piping for gas, for lights? Zero. Doesn't exist. But at one time there was just like, oh, well, are they going to use gas for the lights or the electricity? So it's this radical change that's happening, and the change is happening in this direction. We know there's climate change. That's
Yep.
just a reality. That's a reality. Whatever anybody says, I'm sorry, there's science. If you don't believe in science, then I don't know, just read a book. I don't know what book you want to read. But in reality, we have to address the situation we're in. And if we don't, we won't be making films in 100 years. It won't be much. I mean, you're going to be in such a critical situation. There is a point of no return. So, but we have to do everything to mitigate.
It's almost a reconnection to ourselves, right? In a way, reconnection to the land that we're on, the acknowledgement of this, but also I think we've just been so carried away in the last 300 years, right? By the Anthropocene and so on. And it's like we're reconnecting. We're reconnecting. We're learning, like we're teaching kids now how to, be in touch with their emotions, right?
Mhm.
None of us were taught that. I mean, so so it's just like these are even just as simple as those little tiny things like that have that ripple effect and change, a whole industry. And I like that's what we're seeing now happening. And it's it's slow, 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 right? Until it's fast. And then it's
I
gonna
actually, I actually think it's an earthquake, to be honest. I really think it's an earthquake, and I
we're in
think
the tremor zone
We're
right
in the
now.
term, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
it's going
Yeah.
to cause a tsunami. And I think it's going to hit so hard that people are going to like say, what the fuck just happened? Because I
Yes.
think what's happening is that they're, the tremors are, they're pushing, but all it takes is a couple big things. And all of a sudden, everyone just, it's a switch. It's like, oh, it just flipped.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think it's right at a turning point. And I think it's so critical that everyone works. Again, I go back to that collective. Everyone works
Mhm.
collectively. Everyone say, what can we add to this? I mean, the idea of shooting commercials that are meta experience and not only how we're seeing it happen, all those things. It's like, well, I'm going to show you exactly how the commercial shot, but it's also because of the content behind the camera is just as important as the content in front of it. And it's selling, it's doing a, it's cross pollinating. Nobody asked the bee when it lands on the flower, is it serving the flower or the bee? Which is it serving? Both.
Mhm.
Mm, yeah.
Serving both. And but the bee is also helping the flower. So if you look at everything that way, and all of a sudden go, it's going back 300 years, it's going back 16,000 years, it's going back to the point of like, how are we part of this? Why? I have a 15-year-old son who goes to, I think he saw 600 movies last year,
Wow.
and he understands the process of story. He just has this inherent, you talk to him, it's like talking to someone with a PhD about, the whole storytelling process. Why is he? Because he's this sensitive, understanding person. And when he saw his favorite film last year was Poor Things, they go, well, he's only 14 years old. You're letting him see. I go, well, I'd rather have him see naked people than people being disemboweled. I think that's a little, to me, it's a little easier to that's not an issue to me. So, but here's a person who sees the future and is part of that. And so you know, this is where we're at with everything. And I don't think it's a ripple. I
Yeah.
actually think I think so many things are happening. It's like this extreme E. So we have these racing teams that are racing all over the world at areas that have been impacted by climate change. And nobody knows that.
Mhm.
So the biggest teams in the world are doing that. Why doesn't someone harness that information and put it together? And that's what
Mhm.
my efforts. I go, I'm going to take that from there, that from there. I'm going to take that group. They're all telling the same story. Make them work collectively. So all of a
Right.
sudden,
Don't compete. Like, why does this always have to be a fight to the death? It's a losing battle, and we're seeing it, everywhere in the film industry. Music's a
Mhm.
little bit different. We're seeing changes happening in music as well. They seem to be a bit more collective, but it's just we're still in this primitive moment, right? Where it's kind of like everybody's in competition with each other.
you know why?
Why?
Adam Smith.
The
I gotta.
early,
It's all
early
Adam Smith.
economic models of extractive mentality and unlimited resources that
Adam
don't get
Smith.
factored into the whole system
Adam
cost.
Smith is the most detrimental philosophy ever perpetrated on humanity because it's assuming in what he argues is that your gain is at someone's loss.
Yep.
That's the whole point of it. It's like for me to gain, someone has to lose. Adam Smith is wrong. When I go back to the whole point that I always talk about is this dynamic equilibrium. Dynamic equilibrium says everything comes at a cost if we accept the fact that there is a cost for all energy expenditure. But we try to find a harmonic balance in everything that we accept that the teeter totter is slightly off. It's never going to be flat because that means we're dead. If there's fully sustainable, that means nothing moves. It means it's going to come at a cost. But you can gain and I can gain simultaneously from the same end product. Everything that I achieve, you have a parallel ability to achieve simultaneously. It's not at your expense. It's a collaborative growth. So if we make the earth healthier, we all gain. There is no downside. What actually means something is how are we trying to achieve a better humanity? That's what I'm looking at. It's like, oh, okay, so if we actually open up conversations globally, it's about making a better world. It's about constantly, if that's the objective. Every time we turn a camera on, the objective is, how is this story? It's like, okay, can I make a horror story that actually has a purpose? Can I build, is there a subtext in it that has meaning, that actually you truly reflect on what the question is asking? Say, be responsible. The reason this girl died is because everyone in this room was kind of irresponsible.
Mhm.
That's the point of it. So to me, that's kind of like, that's the real wealth of humanity.
Yeah, maybe that's why we all kind of get along and why we've, found each other is because we all kind of like in our own way have believed this and kind of operated in this realm and, figured out how to connect dots and these sorts of things. But I love having these conversations with you, Robert, first of all. Um, and I want to have more because every time we talk, I feel like my mind expands and I greatly appreciate that.
Oh,
So uh I'm I want to, go see what's going on in your commercial. I want to see
most
what you're
definitely.
doing with this musical. This is the stuff think I love that you just went out and shot, in LA, 22 locations and figured it out. Anyway, it's this kind of stuff that's super inspiring.
Mhm.
And I I want more. I want to give, people more of that, share these stories more. Like this is just the coolest stuff that's going on out there. And I really appreciate you being part of that, like
Oh,
doing it and leading it. I
Yep.
mean, God.
And it's a
So,
grassroots, right? It's grassroots, and it's the way it has to be done. And folks that aren't on the train are going to miss out, or they should retire.
or they should retire.
for sure.
And it's, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
okay.
I mean,
yeah.
you
There's a
feel like
natural attrition to everything, and that's
Hmm.
okay. It has
you
to be part
believe
of this.
that it's all good. We need to move forward.
Hmm.
So
Exactly.
you might not want to stay to the end of the line. It's
Hmm.
nothing wrong with it. You can get off at any time. But what's the most important thing, and I think this is every time someone sets foot on a set, they should go like, wow, what a great job I
Yeah.
Hmm.
had. I mean, this is where I think people get lost about that. Every time I've spent so much time on sets, and every time I walk onto a set, I go, this is the greatest toy box ever created for man. It
Yeah.
really is. If Leonardo da Vinci was alive today, he'd be a filmmaker. I would
Yeah.
argue that he'd be an incredible filmmaker. He was this impresario. And here's a person who would embrace everything that we're doing. But people forget Leonardo wouldn't kill a flea because it would be, he thought it was wrong. He says, you can't kill anything. So here's this person who's a vegetarian. He's like this kind of this interesting person, but he saw a bigger picture of humanity. He saw the
Yeah.
importance. And that's where I think by you connecting the dots, by you creating the volt stack, by Zena, by you aggressively dispelling myths that are being perpetrated and kind of saying, how can we push all these things further? You guys do the heavy lifting. I just enjoy the benefits of it.
Well, I think we're all pulling our weight in different ways, right? So,
But
so
collective.
anyway, I know I I I
Yeah.
think that's a wrap for now. And I want to talk more about like at some point, I want to talk about this whole, well-being side and being on set and loving that. And I'm super interested in, and I want to explore that with you. Probably best for another conversation,
Another day.
but
And
another day. But just honestly, really appreciate you expanding our minds and helping us learn and grow and showing us like the cool stuff that you're doing because it's I
yeah.
don't know, super cool, super inspiring.
Well, we just keep moving forward. And like I said, we'll be doing stuff like I have so much stuff that we're filming. So you guys are welcome anytime
Mm.
to be part of it in any way. I mean,
Sounds good. And let's touch base after this on Dragon Wings and also Hollywood Trucks. We'll have some trailers as
oh,
well.
most definitely. Well, that's the other
Yeah. So let's
Champagne. What a name. So
Yeah.
I know. It's all connecting. That's the thing. I think, so anyway,
okay.
thank you.
Yeah.
Easy,
Thank
guys.
you, Robert.
Take
All
care.
right. Thanks, Robert.
Bye-bye.
Until next
Bye.
time.
Okay, well, super cool to have a repeat guest, first of all.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I mean, my brain is still tingling from that conversation because
Mhm.
this guy is like, the real deal. Like he's not asking questions and, asking for permission. He's just out doing it.
I mean, it's rock and
And
roll, right? I mean, this is I think why we all connect. I especially, resonate with Robert. I mean, it's just rock and roll. You're out in front, anything could happen, but you're out there driving and moving it forward.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, listeners, like this, I mean, I know this is the outro or, you're listening at the end here, but you just heard like the template for how
Yeah.
to do this stuff
Yeah.
and the
Absolutely.
innovation and the cool thinking and on all of this, like, and a way to reorient, how you think about, uh, technology and the use of it and the creativity, or in and around it and all of this stuff. Like it was just,
Yeah, Robert's the confluence of all the parts.
mhm,
And I think that that's where we start, and that's why we align with him
mhm,
so clearly. He's so articulate on what it is that he's doing and how he's doing it and where we need to go.
mhm.
We don't even have time for all the old baggage. Like it's already behind. Like let's move this thing forward. Let's work together and let's make something beautiful happen. And this is it. Like, if we can't, again, if Hollywood can't get this going, then we are so far fucked that we got to get this going. And
Well,
we are.
he certainly is. Like, I'll just
Really
say,
is.
like, and there are people we've talked to a lot of them. I mean, everybody we've talked to are just figuring it out, doing it,
Yeah.
figuring it out. So,
Taking
like,
chances.
it's happening. It is happening, and he just
Mhm.
laid out like how he approaches all of this. So,
I love it.
um,
I love
super
it.
cool. I know. I know. It's
It was a vibrational force, it's not even it's beyond intellectual force here at this point. It's so much going on.
Well, totally. And the coolest thing is, like, after I had coffee with him the other day and we were talking about all this stuff, and, I'm starting to connect, like, you need to talk to so and so. And he's like, have you read this? And da da da. And we're just kind of feeding off of each other. And then the next day, I get a text from a friend and he's like, hey, look who I just met. And
Yeah.
like, it's just all kind of like out there vibrating and the energy's good and people are doing it. And coming together and finding it. It's just
Yeah.
so.
It's that fertile ground right now for this, yeah, the next thing that's emerging from this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, all right, this is
Yeah.
if you
Love
know
it.
anyone out there like this,
Yeah.
we want to know. So do get in touch. Our designer is Aaliyah Kane. Music is by Peter Chapman. Our producer is Colin Miller.